of political science at the University of California, Hastings. He's a founding director of the Palm Center. He's also the author of How We Won, Progressive Lessons from the Repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell. Aaron, it's great to have you here. Thanks very much for being with us.
Really a pleasure.
Did the internal process to come up with this policy change follow the path that you described in your book and that the country went through for Don't Ask, Don't Tell repeal?
It did. There was quite a tailwind, quite a lot of momentum from the repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell. Although I have to say, when I started working on this issue 3 years ago, I told a colleague that I thought it would take 10 or 15 years to end the ban. And that was just my way of saying it's going to be a really long time, and I don't know how long, and this has gone with light speed.
What do you think in terms of expected political backlash, expected foot dragging or resistance in the military? I noticed that none of the Joint Chiefs were standing up there with Ash Carter today when he made his announcement.
Yeah, the research is very clear that implementation of inclusive policy is simple, and it's not difficult to let people be who they are. And so it's true, we've heard some talk about what a complicated issue transgender service is, but it's not. The military knows what it's doing. The troops are already serving with transgender peers, and implementation is going to be a success. It's not going to be a problem.
One of the things that Secretary Carter mentioned today is that 18 other countries, including some of our closest allies, already have transgender inclusive policies for their military. Have those other countries sort of already defined best practices for how to do this right? Did that make it easier to come up with the particulars of this for the U.S. military?
It did, and as a community, we used a number of different tactics to show that transgender service works, and one of those, as you mentioned, is to point to analogous institutions. So yes, there are best practices from the Australian and the British and the Israeli militaries, but there are also best practices from federal agencies like the CIA and the FBI. So in this sense, the military is a bit of a laggard because the rest of the federal government is already inclusive to transgender people, so the military had some catch up to do.
Aaron Belkin, professor and author, founding director of the Palm Center, and somebody who's done, I think, almost more than anybody to document and explain the whole process around these kinds of big policy changes. Thanks for being with us tonight.
My pleasure.
Thanks. All right, more ahead.